What is up, YouTube? These are Adorless is back at you with a brand new branded Despia deck profile. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I want to say it's been about a month since I've done a branded deck, and that's only because I've not had any new cards to show off for it. I've not made any new deck building decisions, really. And I didn't really understand the last format for Despia. It seemed like last format you definitely had to be on Thrust, which I don't own. So I didn't bother too much with Despia profiles. But this format's different. This format, with post-Phantom Nightmare, Despia is at its strongest. I do think now, more than ever, if you want to play Despia, it's going to be a great deck. There's less Ash. Obviously, there'll be some Ash, I think, in side decks. But there's less Ash, bottom. The Snake Eye board is asking to be Albazed away into either Mirror Jade or Rindbrum. And the other great thing is, compared to Snake Eye, this is on a budget. You're not spending, I think, it's £200 on two Poplar and two Princess. You're spending £200 for basically this entire main deck and part of the side deck. Extra deck, and potentially even all of it if you go for a bit more lower rarities for everything, which is valid. I've done that for most of this list. So this will be a more in-depth deck profile. So obviously for some of you branded veterans, you already know about how this deck works. And for those that you don't, this is a great way to learn. So regardless, I'd highly recommend you just listen to hear me out and see what I do. Next video, I will let you know this now, will be on Sapphire Surprise, so keep an eye out for that. Let's start off with the main deck, shall we? In terms of combos, starters, I say starters plus, like, they help you get the job done. They're like the playmakers in a sense. We got 3 copies of Aluba, the Jester of Despia. This is the main normal summon. It gets you access to any branded spell or trap, and that's usually branded fusion, but it can be anything. And I've seen instances where I've needed to add branded opening, for example, or the other ones. And it's at 3 because it is all we need in normal summon, and we cannot go for any less. But it's great that it does come up. Yesterday I was at locals. I went X3, which wasn't great, but it was my first time at that locals, and I was in Scareclaw. They removed my Masquerade with like 1900, summoned back Aluba, negated their Fenrir, and then they couldn't win from there. It was a very powerful card, Aluba. Very powerful. 3 brand fusion. This is the heart and soul of the deck. Well, this and one other card. We'll get to that other card later. This card lets you fusion summon using your deck, using full Malvas as material. And plus another card. So well, that's technically from deck, hand, or field. So technically it's only these 6 mysterious cards. Those mysterious cards can go into the rest of your extra deck. So it's always something to be mindful on. Opening, what does this do? This is like emergency teleport for the deck. And it gets Aluba or any other Despia. It's Aluba or one other, we'll get to the other one in a bit. By discarding cards not cost for effect, it's very important to know. And you add it to your hand or summon it. And in graveyard, this is very important for the Viking matchup. If it's in grave, you can banish it and protect your fusion monsters. Ironically, seeing an emergency teleport, we have 1 more copy of it, 3 more copies of it technically, in Fusion Deployment. Now, how Fusion Deployment works is you reveal a fusion monster, summon the fusion materials. Now, in this deck, that'll either be Albaz, well, let's say revealing the Albion, or you reveal Grand Guignol, and you summon Cartesia. Or in some very, very strange situations, there's another one we can summon to a grindy situation. Some lists I have seen play Ubel, unironically, do a fusion deployment, reveal Neos Kluger, summon Ubel, super polymerization, the rest of the board away. Their entire board into the new Ubel fusion. I have 1 Ubel is £30 at the moment, and that's not affordable. And 2, I don't know how much the new fusion is, but I think it's about the same price. So it's not something that we can get right now, but it's something to aim towards for the future. But the main fusion deployment thing I mentioned earlier was Blazing Cartesia, the Virtuous. This is quick effect polymerization. It's the main thing you know about it. So it lets you dodge Impulse and Yalivas. And this lets you, it adds back to your hand in the end phase. If a fusion monster sent to the, Adds to your hand in the end phase if you send a fusion monster in the end of the turn. Optional. And it's optional and sometimes you don't want to do it because of the other Despia we have in Guiding Quem. This is a one-off. I know some lists like playing 2. I also play ad libitum as a heads up, but I can't afford to. I do think 2 is the correct play this format. In a lot of hands, this is like the best card to draw. It's your best combo starter, in all honesty. Quem, then Brand Infusion, and then you got Albion Effect, or Foolish Rail, Saranir, and then you just go from there into a full combo, pretty much. It is insane, and it's so useful in the grind game situations. It should be more than one. I only have one. I'll let you know when you need more than one copy of a card I don't own. And we're also on 1 Foolish. Foolish and Despia Tragedy is full combo, but it plays into Droll, which I think will be very prominent in this format due to how powerful Snake Eye is when it's allowed to just add repeatedly. So if you are going to be on Foolish, beware of that. But you can do Foolish and anything else. And it's like, I've seen hands where I need to go Foolish, send Fallen of Albaz, Foolish, send Saranir, as I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of plays you can do with this card, so you want to be aware of that. And the last, and the true heart and soul of the deck, in my opinion, is 3 copies, Fallen of Albaz. Albaz is literally, the deck isn't branded without Albaz. Because Branded Fusion needs Albaz. This, to summon itself, needs Albaz. This sends cards to do with Albaz to grave. So while it's known as Branded Despia, the branded side is all to do with Albaz himself. And I play 3 because I always feel like I'm drawing too much of him for some reason, due to my luck. But also, 3 is very nice for that grind game situation. In my locals, there's a lot of Castillo as well, so it's always nice to have. But I do think Castillo will be a very good anti-meta deck for the upcoming format. So having 3 to play around that is very nice to have. And on summon, it's super poly at home, which decks like Castillo don't really like. And that is it for the main playmakers. Let's go on to the rest, or what people call the engine requirements. For the branded Lost package, we have a single Tri-Brave Mercuria and Albion, and that's it. Obviously, the rest of it is Cartesia, Quem, Albaz, but we've already went over those. So, branded Lost, it is a menace to society. How this card works is that you will activate it, you go Branded Fusion or any other fusion summon. Then, the activation of your cards or effects that include a fusion summon cannot be negated. So, the activation can't be, the effect can. And that's why you can't do Lost, Branded Fusion to prevent Ash. That doesn't work like that, unfortunately. But when you fusion summon, you get a search for this into a card Albaz or a monster that mentions it. So, Mercuria we have, because in hand or on field, remember that for Quem, you can send it to the grave to negate a monster effect. It's very powerful, as it's a free hand trap that your opponent knows you'll have, but you can also use it to make Rindbrom the Striking Dragon in dire situations. When banished, and that can be by Mirror Jade if it's on field, or if it's by Saranir in grave, you can search your deck for another Albaz monster. Albaz himself, Cartesia, etc. Albion, he's a free dump of Albaz or a branded spell trap, any branded spell trap, so a lot of times will be opening. And then after you've done that, you may draw a single card, put it to bottom and draw a single card if it's in your hand, or don't if it's in your grave. You can send yourself from your hand to grave, but I wouldn't really advise that. A good tech card I think you could theory about is Albaz the Ashen. I'm not currently playing this because my list is currently 45, but if you're on Thrust and you're planning to go a bit higher, this is a good option because it makes it non-targeting summon back from Quem and it summons itself really easily, so it makes everything else non-targetable. So this is an option, and if you don't like Red Eye Touch Dragoons, spoiler, we are in Dark Magician, you can swap that out for this, but that is a heads-up warning you can do. The rest of the branded spells, Albaz spells we are playing is 1 Retribution and in red, very standard here. I don't play enough light. I do own a single copy of Branded in High Spirits, which I know Galzo really likes and as an advocate for. And I can see why. It does seem like it's a good card. But my main issue with High Spirits is that it plays into Droll, and I don't play enough targets for it. Seriously, I don't. I have Mercuria for plus Rindbrom, and that's it. I have any of my Dark Dragons, sure, But in this list, that is just Albion, 3 Albaz, and Saronir. Again, if you're on Albaz the Ashen, it's an extra, so you might want to consider this more. I don't have any Fairyons, because the only one that might work is Eldritch Construct, but I don't know the stats on that. And then a spellcaster one, sure. That's just Quem, Cartesia, and Dark Magician. It's not worth it, unfortunately, right now. But some of this can play it, and depending on how the format changes, I may actually play this card. But for now, we don't need it. These two, what do these two do? This, when a spell trap is activated, you return either on board a Fusion Monster Ventures Albaz, or in Grave 2, negate the activation and destroy it. So if your opponent goes, I don't know, Snake Eye Poplar, you can then Retribution that. If they go Garunix, you can Retribution that, as an example. But it's a graveyard effect, what makes it very powerful. You can banish it from your grave, target any brand spell trap, add it back to your hand. This doesn't make it so you basically have like either 4 copies of Brand Infusion or more copies of it in red, or if you lose it, lost. It's a very powerful card for that reason. You can send it off Saronir, so it's very accessible. In red is insane. Target a Despia or Albaz in grave, add it to your hand, then you can fusion summon. You usually always will. And what do you want me to make by banishing stuff? Either Dracospelia. I'm playing a copy in my main extra deck of the Tax Dragon, Masquerade, but he'll be talking about later. Or Dracospelia against deck that likes being destroyed, like Unchained. It just can't attack directly, so you need to remember that. But other than that, it's a very powerful card to have. I've seen some lists play more than one, but I think that's a bit bricky otherwise. But at one, it's very nice. And the rest of these engine requirements is a Tragedy and an Ad-lib for the remaining Despias. Again, if you can get one, I shall put those over here. Tragedy. Just smoosh this up a bit. Tragedy and Ad-lib, very powerful. You can get another Quem, this should be another Quem. I don't own another Quem, but this is very nice. When Al Libitum is fused away from your hand or field, it will summon back a Despia or another fusion monster. At locals yesterday, I summoned back Dread-Eyes Arch Dragoon against a Kashtira player to give them a bit of trouble. Tragedy, when it's sent to grave or banished, you may search for a Despia, and you can banish it from your grave to reset a branded spell or trap that you might need. And that also goes to come up, basically making it with this, like your 5th copy of Branded Fusion potentially. Or it can get more, again, more in red, more Retribution, honestly, I have done in the past. Or with a certain trap card in my side deck, you can do that. With the remaining ones we have is Abyssal Rebellion and Saronir. Now, Metagames GX, shout out to him by the way. He is very talented at Branded, and in his current list isn't playing the Bestials because there's not enough targets in his opinion. I would care to disagree. This isn't going to be a tier 0 format yet. Give it a couple more sets or a bit more time for people to adjust. But for currently, I don't think it'll be tier 0. While Snake Eye Viking or pure Snake Eye is very powerful, these two aren't a waste of space. So again, I mentioned about Saronir Banish Mercurio, but Saronir Banish Tragedy. And they might be on other bricks in their deck that we don't need. Or Saronir Banish Diabellstar has happened before now, when it's been sent to grave on my turn. And it's just not. And Nubellion extends your play so much, it's not worth cutting it. It is also about like £15 at the moment, so it's not too expensive for your branded for you budget players like myself. And of course, the final monster that's part of an engine requirement is the Dark Magician, which I will say right now, it is in a very nice ultimate rare printing. But by itself, it's a brick. It is like the single garnet of the deck. And while discarding it sucks because it means you just drew a dead card, it's not the worst thing in the world. If you can get Gimmick Puppet and Albion the Sanctified Dragon, you can also play those. Those are very good options. For now, I will stick to Dark Magician and Dragoon. But when I can get those, I will be. So this format with Snake Eye being rampant as it is, with every other deck, other than Fluunderies, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare is too good not to pass up. The only deck it's not really good against other than Fluunderies is Labyrinth. And at that point, you're being chilling with Ad Libitum, Guardian Chimera, and your side deck. And that's it for the that's the main part of the deck. And then the rest of this is NonEngine. So this is 45 cards with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17? Apparently 17 non-engine. I might have messed up my maths there, but let me recount. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 non-engine. I can't do maths. But here we go. I've got it's too good to pass up this format. Unless your deck locks you, is super polymerization. Again, I mentioned about branded being really good, but Snake Eye boards, Snake Eye Viking always in the board that has at least a couple fire monsters on it. And Mud Dragon and Garura are perfect summon off this. And Mud Dragon itself solos against the Princess, because you can go Mud Dragon declare fire, and then suddenly they can't target any fire monsters, meaning they can't update Princess. Again, a revelation I learned due to Metagames GX. But also against every other deck is so powerful, including Cash Tira. I've had into like Super Poliway, Scare Cash, and Fenrir just fuse away into Garura, and then they spiraled into a game loss. Such a powerful card. I'm also maining Forbidden Droplet at 2. I would play 3 if I could, honestly. It's such a good card. Well, it might not have come up yesterday. It was one of my main out 2 cards, such as, or what came up yesterday was that Scareclaw Tryhard was a card I know outs for, other than these 2 specifically. But it's also just good for breaking boards that end on like Baron and Fenrir and all the other cards that I can't actually deal with easily. And it's just incredibly powerful to have. And thanks to Rarity Collection, us budget players get access to this. But the main bit with non-engine is playing through Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. And while I did say the inside decks, some people will still be maining it. I've mained it in Tyrion and Ishizu format, so it's going to come up. It's always good. It's always a good card. But it'll definitely be in side decks. So what I'll do, I'll move these down here, and we can talk about the anti-Ash stuff we've got. Obviously, you've got Cool Buy. So 1, I do think it probably should be banned. It's that powerful. Either you ban Cool Buy or you bring back Red Reboot. That is my awful take of 2024. I would love another Red Reboot. So, how else are we going to play around Ash? I already mentioned I can't afford Thrust. So what are we doing? We are cross-outing some designators. Now, this should be third cross-out. I have a extra cross-out target in Ghost Bell in here. This should be the third designator. But I do not own a third designator. So for now, that's Bell. Which we'll talk about later. But for now, it should be 3 cross-outs. To just go cross-out called Ash. Or more frequently I've had was cross-out called Imperm. And then you can play from there. But we'll talk about Ghost Bell instead when it comes up. I chose to play that as my third cross-out target. Yeah, cross-out designator is a very powerful card. So what are the cross-out targets this format? The best ones. Now, Nibiru is one. It's either have in main Nibiru or Droll Knockbird. I went with Droll because I found a lot more decks playing Droll in the main deck due to research. Although we do have Nibiru inside as a heads up. And with what I've learned so far at Snake Eye, Nibiru is very good against them. I'm actually tempted to play both in main if I could, and maybe droplets potentially, and put those in the side, or even swap it as 4 Nibiru. But for now, you've got 3 Droll Knockbird, just to make sure that keep those in the common decks like Sprite, and just keep everything in line. We have 2 copies of Ash, only 2. I have enough space for 3. The Ghost Bell could have been a third, but I thought if I was going to play a third of anything, it would be a third Imperm. But I again chose against that. I chose to target. Ash, it stops stuff to a deck. You can't summon from deck, it stops summon from deck, add from deck, deck to grave. All you really know. And that does stop Brown Infusion, so that's why we run the cross out. Imperm, it's like Veiler but better. If it's set, you lock a spell and trap zone out. If it's in hand, you can do it on your own turn. It's very good. I've seen a lot of deck players, and I think I cross-outed Imperm yesterday at least 3 times out of how many? While it might sound like a lot, you gotta remember, a lot of games I didn't draw cross-out, and when I did, I had to go cross-out designator infinite impermanence. So this has seen a rise in play, so you might want to be wary of that. And I do have a Ghost Bell. I chose to play Ghost Bell for a couple of reasons. Ghost Bell is very good against the Lab, which is still a deck, and I do think is an issue this format. I also think Bell is very good against, obviously, Despia, but it's also a good option to cross out because people are playing that because of Labyrinth and Snake Eyes. You just stop the Promethean Princess, which you got to remember. It stops the Snake Eye Flamberge Dragon. So Bell is a good card, honestly, for this format, but it is probably going to be cuttable for, as I said, the third cross-out designator, the third imperm, either of those. And that is it for main. That was non-engine. Moving on to the extra. I will be flipping that bell back around because I will go insane otherwise. In the extra deck, we've got very standard branded ratios for the most part. 2 Albion. Albaz plus light. On summon, it will fuse by doing the Miracle Fusion. Basically, Miracle Fusion plus stuff from hand. And it summons a level 8 or higher fusion monster. 1 Rebellion. It's Albaz plus Dark, and it shuffles back from field, grave, and banish back in deck for a discard. And if you do that, you can't attack with this. You play it as a 1. You're going to go into Rebellion. You're going to shuffle Rebellion back. We play 2 Mirror Jade because again, Cashier is a thing, but also because you never want to play run out. You can show you have Retribution to put stuff back and Rebellion to put it back, and you don't have Rebellion anymore, and you have Mirror Jade to actually extend from that point. So it's a bit of an issue. 1 Titanic Ads to send off Grand Beagnol or Mirror Jade who summon Quem, or to be over the Pearly Menace. Pearly is a menace deck with its big towers that we don't really have a way to deal with unless you're on Herald of the Abyss. So I have a one of in the side because it's also spare slots. We'll get to it later when we get to the side deck. And it was just a very powerful option to have to just beat over Kashira boards. And Rindrum. Rindrum is so good this format, it is not cuttable. What you would do, you'd play Albaz and you're going to go into Garunix, or with Garunix into this, and that will slow down the good old Snake Eye Viking deck. And it's also just a good send off Mirror Jade to summon back Albaz to fuse into something. What I will say is that I'm tempted to play Sprint just for the monster that they summon on my turn, but that's debatable. Again, it's an option. For the Despias, other than Masquerade, we'll get to Masquerade last. The big reason behind that one. We have Grand Mignol. On summon, you need all these. You need this one. You need Albaz. Albaz, an extra monster. Albaz, 2500 or more attack. Albaz, Beast Warrior, Winged Beast. So if it's Tri Brigade in your locals, you want to run this. Then you need Cartesia and the Light or Dark. On summon, it sends a level 6 or higher from extra deck or deck to grave. And you can banish this card from your field or graveyard when your opponent sessions a monster to either make, in my case, a Despia monster from the extra my options, Proskenion, or Dogmatic from deck like Quem, or if you run it, Fleur de Lis or the other stuff. Proskenion, we don't often make this, and I wouldn't recommend you actually make this unless it's a very funny situation, like Pearly or something. But if you do want to make it, it's a Despia monster plus light and dark. This has the Flame Wingman effect of you punch into something and they take full damage. The highest stat, which is fair enough, but that's not why we're playing this. We play this for its other ability. To target a card in the graveyard, either a fusion monster, an extra monster in your opponent's graveyard, either summon it to your field, say Baron de Fleur, or banish it, like, the Promethean Fire Princess. That will then greatly hinder the grind game of those fire decks, and it makes this a much bigger target than your Mirror Jade or your Dragoon. Speaking of, there's a chap, my favourite fusion monster in the game. I do think Red Eyes Dragoon is a very good card. It's non-targetable, so it puts a spanner in the works for Kashtira and Tri Brigade. And it is a threat to most decks, honestly, because it's a free Omni Negate we don't normally have access to. So if you can go Dragoon and you want, let's say, the Sanctify stuff, you can go Dragoon with, I think it's Nadir 7 for the Sanctify lock. And that is a puppet lock immediately done. So it's a very, very powerful card that you want to keep your eyes out for. Again, if you don't want to play Drop Magician, that's fair enough, you can cut the Dragoon then for, let's say, Albion Sanctifier or the second Masquerade, which I'll actually get to, I'm playing a second one inside. 1 Guardian Chimera. This is deal with back row. It's the only archetypal way you had to deal with back row. But it's also just either draw 2 to pop 1, draw 2. And to make this one real fast, Dimension and Dragon effects. This one, you need 3 monsters with different names. You have at least one in hand, or at least one on field. One or the other. For super polymerization targets, what is that on my cardboard? My sleeves. Ooh. We do have Mud Dragon, I mentioned it earlier. Any 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types, like all the Fire Kings, basically. And you can, with this card, you can declare an attribute. This card becomes that attribute at the end of the turn, and your opponent cannot target this or other cards of the same attribute. So if you go Mud Dragon to fire, they can't target fire. If you go Mud Dragon to light, they can't target lights. It's very good. Garua. It's like basically the exact same material as Mud Dragon, of the same type and attribute, but different names. This is double damage when it attacks, and when it's sent to grave, you draw a card. We're on Prelapant Dracostopelia. I did get the rarity collection, rarity bump with this. It's a fusion plus a dark, so it's actually someone with brand red or brand fusion in dire situations. Not brand fusion, Rebellion and Albion. And once you play target face that monster, put a predator counter on it. You change its level to 1, which is very good against Kashtira, or very synchro in Xyz decks, and you negate the activated effects, which is very powerful, again, stuff like Fenrir. And lastly, we do have the Masquerade. Now, I did tell you something about this. So, in the side deck, as a heads up, we have the second one. Yes, the second. Why is that? This card solo Snake Eye. They go through so many effects constantly to get a decent end board. Having 2 Masquerade on your end board means they have to take 1,200 per effect. And that was my sibling, sorry about that. By having that up, they means they get 6 effects, done. If it's just the one, they get about 13 effects. But if it's just one, it's still 13. That's still not very many. And with 2, they have about 6 effects where they can't have any more life points. They don't have enough life points to pay. That's going to shut down their deck completely and make Masquerade a massive threat. So it's something to look out for. Yeah, it's something I would also recommend right now for the format. And that is it for the extra side deck. Now, warning, for a competitive event, you want to have a different side deck. For your own locals, play for your locals. But this is what I'm currently doing with both of those things in my local scene and competitive. I know a lot of people don't like doing side decks for that reason, but I think it's worth showing so you get a rough idea on what you can run. And I mentioned 3 Nibiru to stop combo decks like Scareclaw. I keep mentioning, but it was one of my favourite matches yesterday. Like Snake Eye, it's very powerful to stop at the right point if you know where to stop them. It's usually nice to pair it up with Ash and Imperm or even Nibiru and Trolls. Very, very destructive. We have 3 Cyclone. People are playing Anti-Spell. So by having Cyclone, it stops the Anti-Spell from ruining your day. And again, back removal is necessary for decks like Labyrinth. I personally do the Kashtira Menace, and Pearly, for that matter. I'm on 3 Book of Eclipse. This card will change everything face down, or they get a draw in the end phase. But you're not going to activate that without the extra stuff. So if they have a full board of monsters, then the entire board will be negated. So they're not negated, but face down to activate their effects, which is very powerful to remember. But it does affect you as well, to be wary. Now, I'm on 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. That should be 3, and this should be the 3rd. I've decided, but I don't own 3. So why are we on talents? Hand traps are everywhere, as usual Snake Eye. You got Nibiru's, you got Drolls, you got Veilers, I've seen. You got Bell. All of them are everywhere. And even if it's just get Ash, I can then go talents draw 2, or if I have extension, talents, rip a card, and then carry on playing. If I draw and go talents, look at their hand. Ooh, that's a nice Ash. Be gone. Ooh, talent. Ooh, that's a nice combo starter. You got no more hand traps. Be gone. It's very powerful to have in your disposal. Herald of the Abyss, I chose to play over talents because, long story in that 3rd slot, because if Purdy came up, I would be in trouble. I don't have an out to X Purdy Noir, but it's always something I can cut. You can cut in your own lists. Another card you can count in your own lists is Dimensional Barrier. This is a one-off because of Cross-Out Designator, and I have to play this with Cross-Out. Until you get Thrust, you have to play this, unfortunately. For a branded trap, I have Brightest Blazing Branded King. The other one you can play is Banishment. And how does these work? Abyss, Herald of the Abyss, if you don't know what it does, pay 1,000, 1,500, declare monster type, attribute, put them sent on the way, they can't have any effects. But these two right now are what we're talking about. So D-Barrier, you call, and I'm not just painting it right, it's these two. This one, you choose a fusion that mentions Fallen of Alba as a material, and that's got Sanctifier in its picture, so obviously so that's target, you don't target it. But that can be Albion, Lubellion, Mirror Jade, Rindbrum, you target that. Every other face-up card is negated, so if that's EV they just activated, negate that. If they've just activated, let's say, a very important card on field, you can just negate that quickly. And you, in the end phase, if a fusion monster enters grave, you add it back. This back to your hand, one effect per turn, but it doesn't mean it's recursion, and that is very handy to have, just like what Branded in High Spirits does. Okay, well, what's the Maris playing Banishment? Target a Despia or level 8 or higher fusion, your grave, special summon it. Then you can apply this effect, fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials from it, listed on it from either field. So against the mirror match, it's very powerful in it. Any light and dark deck, it's very powerful. Or if that you know the opponent on Kaijus, it's very good to protect Mirror Jade and whatnot. But it's not as versatile as you might think, because it's a fire meta. It's the year of the fire. So for now, Banishment is not worth being played. And then that leaves the final extra card of the second Masquerade. And this is the current list without the thrusts. I do thank you all for watching. I love making content for everyone. Like, comment, subscribe. You know how YouTube works at this point. And until the next one, cheerio.